What is up, everyone? And we are officially a day away from the most wonderful time of the year here. I did want to briefly apologize for Sunday and not going live there. YouTube was unfortunately preventing me from going live. Not really sure what happened there, but it does look like I have everything figured out, at least for the future. So, in the future, we should not have any problems with live streams, but I did want to apologize for not being able to go live on Sunday. That is my mistake and definitely will not happen again. However, it did make today's show a little bit easier in terms of ideas and topics to come up with. What I'm going to do for you guys here today is I'm just going to fill in my bracket for you guys, break down some of these matchups, and just give you an idea of where my head is at here a day before the tournament tips off. So without further ado, let's get into my bracket. And here she is, the moment we have all been waiting for. The bracket is finally set, and we are all ready for March Madness here. I'm obviously going to be a little bit biased picking this region of the bracket in the East here, but we'll get through it, and I'll start off with Duke versus Siena. Now, this might surprise a lot of people, but I am going to be taking Siena. No, I'm not. I'm taking Duke. I'm taking Duke to win this one. They should definitely win by more than likely 30 plus. It does sound like Pat Gungba is ramping up to play this week, which would be huge for my Blue Devils to get him back before we get into tournament play here and get him some games back before we get to the second weekend. But yeah, even without him, they should beat this Siena team by 30 plus, I think. Siena is a good squad. I definitely don't want to disrespect them in any way, but this Duke team is certainly one of the most elite teams in the nation and one of the best teams that we have seen recently in college basketball. They should definitely not struggle in the first round at the very least. Moving down to Ohio State and TCU. This is a game that I've really flipped back and forth on. I don't really think that either one is a bad pick. It's an 8-9 game, obviously. None of them are really going to be bad picks, but I do see a lot of people taking Ohio State, and that does make me sour on them a little bit more, especially with this being the first game of the tournament. This always seems to be one of those games that either screws a lot of people or keeps a lot of people alive. I think for me personally, Ohio State is just so reliant on Bruce Thornton. I mean, he is an incredible player. Do not get me wrong. I'm so glad that he made March Madness and we're going to be able to see him get to play in March Madness. He absolutely deserves that based on his career at Ohio State. But on the other hand, they really do not have anything else aside from him. And I do like this TCU team. Playing in the Big 12 has made them very, very tough. And I just think that they are going to pull this one off. So I will be riding with TCU in the first round here. Could obviously see this bracket go wrong after the first game tomorrow, but I'm going to rock with TCU. I just think the Horned Frogs have too much there at different positions that Bruce Thornton is not going to make up for in terms of the whole game. But I do hope that we get to see Bruce Thornton advance. I would love to see him play against my Blue Devils because mostly I think that Duke would wipe that Ohio State team off the floor. I think they should do the same with TCU as well. So not really worried about that matchup either, but hoping to stay perfect here after this tip-off on Thursday. Moving down to St. John's and Northern Iowa. Maybe this is just because I am a Duke fan and I don't understand why all these Duke fans are so, how do I say this, worried about our bracket. I really am not that worried about our region at all. I mean, just looking at all these teams, they're a bunch of big names, but I don't really think that they're that good of teams. Like, we have a lot of good coaches in here. Obviously, you got Patino, you got Self, you got Kelsey, you got Izzo, and then Hurley down at the bottom. But I really don't think that these teams are that good. And I'm going to start with a big upset here. I think Northern Iowa is going to take down the Johnnies. I have been a person who is high on the Johnnies all year. So this is definitely kind of an out-of-character pick for me. I do think St. John's is very good. They're obviously well coached, and I'm probably going to regret going against Patino in the first round. But there's just something about me that really makes me feel like this region is going to be really weird. I just have a really strong feeling that we're going to see some upsets in this region alone. I don't know where they're going to come necessarily, but I do think that there's going to be some of these big teams dropping out early, especially after all these people have been saying Duke is going to be the first number one seed knocked off. I think that most of their tough teams are going to get knocked off pretty early, and then the tune is going to completely change come Final Four. It's going to be, oh, Duke didn't have to play anybody to get to the Final Four after everybody talked about how tough this region was. I personally do not think that this region was very tough. I think it's just a ton of names. Obviously, hate seeing Michigan State in our bracket. They are in our bracket way too much, but I really just do not see why everybody is so high on this region and thinking it's some region of death. But I do think there are a lot of tough teams in here. There's a lot of very good coaches, so it's definitely not going to be a cakewalk. I just personally do not see it being that tough. And one of the first big upsets I have is Northern Iowa taking down St. John's. Moving down, this one's just completely opposite. I did not see Cal Baptist having any chance against Kansas. I think Kansas has started to struggle here a lot recently, and I don't think they're a good matchup for Duke necessarily, but I do think that they are a very good matchup for the Cal Baptist team. I think that they will most likely run them off the floor, and then they will set themselves up with a pretty easy game in the second round here against Northern Iowa in the round of 32. Moving down to Louisville and South Florida. This one really sucks for me. Because I really love South Florida. I think South Florida is a very good team. They're very well coached. I think they're very well balanced. They play great defense. They can pressure guards. And I think that's why I'm talking myself into taking them. But, man, after I've talked so high on Louisville all year this year, it's just going to feel really weird taking them to lose in the first round along with St. John's. So I'm not going to do it. I am going to take Louisville here. I've been seeing a lot of people picking the South Florida team as one of their favorite upsets, and I do think that they are going to be one of the teams that is going to be primed and ready for an upset. Do not get me wrong. I do not think that this Louisville team is nearly as good as I thought they were in the beginning of the year. However, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like everybody's taking South Florida right now and jumping off this Louisville bandwagon, and I'm not quite ready to do that yet. I really wish they would have gotten another 11 seed, to be honest. Like, this is not a good matchup for them. But I am going to rock with the Cardinals to take down South Florida here. This one is another one that I have flipped back and forth on pretty heavily. I think that this is a much closer split to 50-50 for me than a lot of people are thinking. I know it's not smart to go against Izzo in March, so I don't think I'm going to do it quite yet. But this Michigan State team, I do not think they're that good. I just really do not think that they're that good. Obviously, Cohen Carr is an absolute demon. That dude jumps out of the building and just puts on highlight plays every single week. And Jeremy Fears is also really good. I'm trying to talk myself into taking this North Dakota State team as an upset, but I just don't think it's going to work. I am going to rock with Michigan State here and Izzo to get the job done at least in the first weekend. Don't know if they're going to be able to take down Louisville, but we're not at that matchup yet, so we'll worry about that a little bit later here. This one is another game that I have flipped back and forth on. I mean, this is pretty much the whole bracket. Don't get me wrong. I have flipped back and forth on pretty much every single matchup. When you've filled in probably 25 brackets every single year for the past 10 years, you start to realize that the matchups that you aren't looking at are typically the ones that go wrong. But this one is one that I think is just another really big toss-up here. Obviously, I love Coach Dawkins, former Blue Devil, so I love him and would love to see him take down Mick Cronin. But UCLA is playing so good right now. I mean, they played really well in the Big Ten tournament. They took down Nebraska. So, man, yeah, I'm gonna look at some. I'm gonna look at some of this. Let's look at this a little bit. That's the other thing. Is Bilodeau going to be good to play? Oh, man, this is such a tough one. 68-32. You know what? I'm rocking with UCF. I didn't know that the split was that bad. Holy cow. This UCF team is getting slept on like crazy. 32%? Come on, man. I don't know. This is another one that I think is a toss-up. I don't really think you can go wrong with this one, but I'm going to rock with UCF. Just seeing that split, that's crazy. I do not think it should be 32-68. I think it should be much closer to like 55-45. So I'm going to help out UCF there and try and get that to a little bit more even of a split here. I don't really think that that's, like I said, a game that you're going to look back on and be like, wow, I really should have picked UCLA. I think that you're going to be perfectly fine with either of them. However, I am going to ride with UCF. I seeing that split definitely made me jump on their bandwagon a little bit more here, but I do really like UCF, especially after seeing them against Duke earlier this year. They're just a really tough team, and they definitely battle throughout the game, so I'm going to take UCF. I think you can go either way on that one, but I'm going to stick with UCF in this first round at least. And, of course, I will be going with UConn as well. Don't really think that needs much explanation at all. UConn has not been playing the greatest of ball recently, but I do personally think that they're going to take this one home pretty easily and then most likely going to get past UCF as well. Moving down to the South region here. This is going to be one that's obvious. It's going to be Florida. It's pretty clearly going to be Florida. I don't think there's any one seed that are in danger of losing this year. I think that they are set so far ahead of the rest of the pack that none of these guys are going to lose in the first round. If you want to get my idea on this game, I do have Lehigh winning this one. I think that they're just a little bit of a better team than Prairie View A&M. I think it's going to be another really good game. We got two great games last night in the first four, but I think that Lehigh will take this one home and then get blown out by Florida, unfortunately. This one is another one. I mean, obviously, I hate to keep saying this, but it's another one that I flip back and forth on. It's an 8-9 game, so that should be pretty obvious here, but I don't know. The best player on the floor is going to be Bennett Sturts. That is not up for debate, in my opinion. Bennett Sturts is going to clearly be the best player on the floor in that one. But the better team, I think, is Clemson. I think that they've been playing much better recently here. They did not play very good to end the season, but that win against UNC was huge. And then they did get dog-walked by Duke a little bit. So this one is another one, like I said, I flip back and forth on here. I think I'm going to stick with my original gut in Clemson. But, man, going against Bennett Sturts sucks. Really don't want to go against Bennett Sturts. But I do think Clemson is going to I do think Clemson is going to win this first matchup at least. Second matchup I think is also very intriguing for them. I don't think that they have the size to do it, but I think it's going to be a very good game there. Moving down to Vanderbilt and McNeese. This is one that I think I'm going to go opposite on. I don't know. A lot of people do like McNeese. I like McNeese as well. I do think they're a very good team. Will Wade definitely left them in a good position, like he said he would. But, man, I don't know. I think I have to ride with Vanderbilt here. Just based on how they played in the SEC tournament, I think that they can carry that momentum here into the tournament and at least win the first round. Second round is going to be a lot tougher, but I think Vanderbilt at least gets past McNeese. After that, we'll see. Moving down to Nebraska and Troy. I really want to take Troy. Oh, man. See, Nebraska, I mean, they just haven't won a tournament game in forever. I do like them to get it done this year. I mean, with Samford, he's been part of that group for so long. They deserve a win. But just because you deserve a win doesn't mean you're going to get one. Oh, I'm going to rock with Troy. I don't think I like it. I don't think I like it at all, but I'm going to rock with Troy. I think history is going to repeat itself here, and Nebraska is going to be due for a letdown here. I've gone back and forth on this one a lot, too, if you can't tell. I've gone back and forth on pretty much every single matchup, if you can't tell. I'm a big overthinker, but yeah. This Troy team is good. I mean, just watching them last week, they are very good. They can definitely do it. I don't think that they necessarily will, but I think this is going to be another upset that I'm rocking with here. And down to my most hated team. I love VCU. I think VCU is really good, but I just think it's a little weird that they're favored in this game. I don't think that they're that good. They're good, but they're not that good to be favored over North Carolina. I get North Carolina doesn't have Caleb Wilson, but there's something about these underseeded North Carolina teams. They always try to perform well and outperform what they're seeded at. I know last year they lost to Ole Miss in the first round, so not necessarily something that's been repeating itself here lately, but there's just something against me or something inside me that does not want to take VCU against North Carolina here because I could very easily see North Carolina getting to the Sweet 16 just based on this region. I'm not going to take the upset here. I'm going to go opposite of what everybody else is probably doing. I'm going to go North Carolina here. I think that they'll get past VCU. I really do like this VCU team, and I honestly do think that whatever team comes out of this matchup will make it down here. But we'll talk about that right now, where I have the Illini losing to Penn first round. This is not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, and actually I think I'm going to change that up. TJ Power was just awesome in that Ivy League championship. He was just absolutely electric, and if we can see him replicate that against Illinois, they are definitely going to be able to pull that one off. But I think I'm going to change up there. I think I'm going to go back to Illinois. I just think that Illinois is one of the best teams in the nation. I've had them on my contender list pretty much throughout the entire year, so I think it would be really weird to have them losing in the first round here. I really do want to take Penn. I really do. I think I'm going to regret it by tomorrow, but we'll see. I'm going to stick with Illinois here. I don't really like Ivy League games in the nightcap. I think they're much better during the day, just historically. But, yeah, I think I'm going to stick with Illinois there. But just know I did want to take Penn. Moving down to St. Mary's and Texas A&M. Oh, Lord. Yeah, I just talked too heavy on Texas A&M and the SEC to think that they're going to pull this one off. I think St. Mary's is a very good team. I think that they're going to be able to pull this one off pretty easily as long as they can keep Texas A&M's offense at bay, which I do expect them to be able to do. They're one of the best defensive teams in the nation. I think they're sitting in the top 40 for Ken Pom for defensive efficiency on the year. So I do think that they will at least get past the Aggies here. However, that's going to be another tough one. Texas A&M is definitely playing much better recently. They didn't really do much in the SEC tournament, obviously, but I do think that they've been playing some better ball here recently. I just don't think that they're going to have enough to take down St. Mary's, but I would not be surprised one bit. And another pretty obvious one here. We're going with Houston. I think that this Houston team is going to start clicking here as we get into March Madness, and I think that they're going to assert their dominance here pretty heavily in the first weekend. Moving on to the West region here, we have another easy one. That's Arizona. Don't need to think about it. Don't need to talk about it. Would love to go Fins up here. Would love to say that they have a chance, but they do not. They are going to get wiped off the floor in this one pretty handedly. This is another matchup that I have been kind of back and forth on a little bit. I have taken Villanova in most of my brackets here, but Utah State is just such a good shooting team. They're the type of team that I think can really just catch fire and just kind of torch Villanova, but I'm going to trust that backcourt in Villanova. I just refuse to believe that they're going to continue to play so bad. I mean, they have three great guards in Perkins, Lindsay, and Lewis. I'm really struggling to believe that they're going to continue to play like that, and I think that they can give Arizona a run for their money if their guards can actually show up. The problem is in those big games this year, they've really gotten little to no production out of their guards, and honestly, it's been like one showing up each night, so they're going to need everybody to show up here in the tournament. Obviously, you need to be playing your best ball here as we get into March Madness. Doesn't seem like Villanova is doing that, but I do think that they will at least get past the first round here. This section right here is one that I have been beating my brain up over. Like, this section is just going to be so weird. I could see both of these seeds losing, and I could see both of them winning as well. I think that these are both really, really, really tough toss-ups here. I want to take at least one upset in this region here, but I don't know where it's going to come from. I think if I had to say one team was going to lose, I think it's going to be Wisconsin. I do. I really do trust their backcourt though with Boyd and Blackwell. I don't think it's going to be Wisconsin. I think it's going to be Hawaii. I think Hawaii is going to do it. I'm going to stick with Wisconsin over High Point. I do really like High Point as well. I talked about them a little bit on my episode last Thursday. I think that they're a really good team. They can definitely catch fire here and beat Wisconsin. I would not be shocked at all if they are one of the earlier upsets. Obviously, they tip off at 1:50 on Thursday, so tomorrow. I could definitely see this as one of the big bracket busters here in High Point. I feel like a lot of people are not taking it. Let's actually look at that split. Yeah, 84? Holy cow. I didn't realize they were so low in the net, but holy cow. All right, yeah. That makes me feel a lot worse about it, but I am going to stick with Wisconsin. I do think that High Point might do it, though. I think I'm going to go with the wrong upset here, but I'm going to take Hawaii. This Hawaii team is just really intriguing to me. I mean, especially after watching that UC Irvine game, that was just a really impressive game from them. Their defense really showed up. They showed that they can absolutely defend with anybody, and they can catch fire too. I mean, those guards are pretty dangerous there. I think that they're absolutely going to have a chance to pull this one off, and I would not be surprised if they do. I think a lot of people are talking so highly on Arkansas again here. I don't know. I just do not trust this Arkansas team at all. I think that they could. I think that they can absolutely get to the Sweet 16. Don't get me wrong, but I do not think that they have a chance against the likes of Arizona. If Arizona gets knocked out, obviously, then they don't have to play them. So I think that they could move on then. But yeah, I really don't think that they're going to go much farther than the first weekend. If they do make it out of the first weekend, I think it'll be because Wisconsin loses to High Point. That's just my opinion. Obviously, could be wrong. But I do think that High Point is going to give Wisconsin a very big problem there. And if they do beat Wisconsin, I think they could give Arkansas a run for their money as well. I don't expect it to happen. I still think that Hawaii could pull this one off. I'm going to personally put it in my bracket. But yeah, would not be surprised if we get a 4-5 matchup there. I just smell something fishy in that section there. This is a game that I was pretty heavy on BYU, but after last night and kind of just remembering how the first four teams kind of perform here in March Madness, I do want to take Texas here. I hope BYU can get it done just because I love AJ Dybantsa. I would love to see him play more in March Madness and as much as he can as possible. However, this Texas team is really good. Obviously, Mark was super impressive last night, but Voka Titus has been awesome all year for Texas as well, and I think he's going to give Keba Keita a lot of problems here on Thursday. So I'm going to rock with the Longhorns in this one. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it'll be a really good game here on Thursday night, but I think I'm going to rock with the Longhorns for now at least. This one, I'm not going to go against Mark Few. I don't think this Gonzaga team is nearly as good as they're seeded. I think that they're definitely a little over-bloviated just because of playing in the West Coast Conference. I think that loss to Portland really opened my eyes here on how good they are, but it's Mark Few. They have been to what? I don't even know how many straight Sweet 16s in a row here, so I think they're going to make another one. I am a little worried about that second round matchup for them here, but I do think that they will probably move on to the second weekend, but we'll talk about that matchup a little bit later here. This one's weird because I really do think that Miami is a much better team here, but I just want to make sure. I think this is in Missouri. Let me double check that. Why doesn't it say here? Okay. Well, can't find that. Let's see. Let's see. Where is this game at? I think it's in Missouri. It is. It's in St. Louis. Yeah, see, that one's a little weird. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't like when 10 seeds get a home. That's ridiculous. At home, it's going to be really tough for Miami to do. But they're not traveling too far either. And I don't think that the SEC was very good this year. I'm going to stick with Miami. I think that's a little weird. That's really odd to have a 10 seed playing in their home state in the first round. They did that to Duke a couple years ago with South Carolina, and I really didn't like that either. I really don't like this. But I think that this Jay Lucas squad is too good to lose this first round game. I think that they are just very good, and they battle the entire game. If it's a close one, they are most likely going to pull it off. And I just think that they're a more talented team than Missouri. I don't think Missouri is that good. I don't think the SEC is that good either. I really don't. But either of them can win that game. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with Missouri being at home. I think that's really weird. I think the committee should be ashamed of themselves for doing that. That's just, yeah, I don't know how you give the advantage to the 7 or to the 10 seed. That's just ridiculous. But whatever. That's neither here nor there. I still think Miami should pull this one off. I really love Shelton Henderson and his game. I think that they are a very good team. They've battled till the end, so I think that they are going to pull that one off at the end there in a really close one in Missouri. I think that's, again, really weird. Don't understand the committee's thought process on that one. There was a lot of head-scratching things that this committee did this year. Not really sure what they were doing or if they were drinking in the room over there. But, yeah, just a really weird setup for the tournament this year. Really sorry for Miami that they have to play their 10 seed in their 10 seed's home state. That really does not sit right with me at all. But that's neither here nor there. I think they'll move on. And, yeah, I think the SEC is going to get exposed this weekend. Oh, this is the 1-2 seed game that I have been really worried about a lot here just because I do not believe in Purdue once we get to March Madness. They just have proved time and time again that they do not perform well in the tournament. They got to one championship and just got absolutely blown out in it. So I just have been really sour on Purdue for the past 10 years probably. They have always let me down when I take them too far in the tournament. But I am going to take them past Queens here. I just think that they're too good to lose that type of game. They have one of the best point guards in the nation. Hopefully he does not break Bobby Hurley's record. I think that's ridiculous getting, 45 more games. But I do think that Purdue will at least get to play Miami there. Moving down to the Midwest here, we get our final very easy pick here. Howard looked great last night against another 16 seed. They will lose by 30 plus. I can guarantee that. Not going to talk too much about that matchup. Michigan is one of the best teams in the nation. Howard is not one of the best teams in the nation. That is pretty much all you need to know there. This one I have been going back and forth on, and I think both of these teams could really give Michigan a run for their money. I think Michigan got kind of a unlucky draw with this one here. I don't like the SEC, but I do think that St. Louis is a little overrated as well. I am going to ride with St. Louis here. I think Avila is just going to dominate and become one of March's sweethearts here. I would not be surprised if Georgia wins at all. They are both some very good scoring teams with some long defenders, so I think they both are going to give each other a run for their money, and then I think they're both going to give Michigan a run for their money there on Saturday as well. So moving down to Texas Tech and Akron. Oh man, this is a region that I honestly kind of want to go both the 12 and the 13 seed because Texas Tech without Toppin is just definitely a different ball game. I do still think that they are very good. I love Christian Anderson. I love Petty. But Akron's also really good. I think Akron is the one team in the MAC that nobody was really talking about because of how good Miami, Ohio was all year. But Akron is really good, and Akron is really solid. I don't want to go against Texas Tech because I love Texas Tech. I love McCaslin. Man, this is going to be a tough one. I think I'm going to go with Akron here. I really hope that they don't do it just because I would love to see Texas Tech advance to the second weekend without JT Toppin. I think that would just be an awesome story for them. However, I do think Akron is just too good. I think that they're too good to lose to a team like Texas Tech who's undermanned. With Toppin, I think Texas Tech would run Akron off the floor, but without him, I just think this is going to be a really tough matchup for them. And same with Alabama. I believe it was Holloway just got arrested for, 2 pounds of weed. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to be playing in this game, and that's going to make this one really tough. I am going to go with the 12 and 13 seed in this region here. I just think that without Holloway, that is going to cause a lot of problems for Bama, and this Hofstra team is definitely no slouch. I watched them last week and was really impressed with them in their conference tournament, so I think that Hofstra is going to get it done here. I'm probably going to look like an idiot, and Texas Tech and Alabama will both win, and then somewhere else, one of the other upsets that I didn't take is going to happen, but I really do think that this is going to be a really weird year in March Madness. I think I might have too many 12 seeds actually making it through here. Let me double check that. Oh, okay. I got 3 13 seeds moving on. Lordy Lord. Yeah, I don't know about that. Might need to go back and change that because that I don't think that many 13 seeds are going to win. But for now, we'll stick with this. We'll stick with this for now. I do think that Hofstra will get past Bama if they are shorthanded. So we'll stick with that right now. And we have a 12 and 13 seed matchup for, what is that, Sunday. Oh, this game is going to be so sad. I really would like to see Miami, Ohio win at least the first weekend. But I think either team that comes out of this one is going to lose. I think that Tennessee is just too good. They have too good of defense. They are going to travel defensively. They play very physical. I think even if SMU wins, Boobie Miller is not going to be enough to take down this Tennessee team. I think Nate Amen is one of the best players in the country, certainly one of the best freshmen in the country, and I think that they will move on at least in the first game here. Same with Virginia. I don't think Virginia should have any problems. Onyenso he is really starting to come alive here. He was really a problem against Duke there on Saturday night, and I was extremely impressed with his game. Don't really know why Duke just kept throwing stuff up and letting him pounded it three rows into the stands there, but that's neither here nor there. They kept doing that, so it's whatever. We got past it. We won, so who cares? But I do really like this Virginia team, and I think they can definitely make a run here in March. We are already in March, sorry. Moving down to Kentucky and Santa Clara. This is another one. This is another one that I've gone back and forth on pretty much the entire time. Undermanned, I like Santa Clara. I just think that Kentucky just has too many injuries here for a good team like Santa Clara. I think Santa Clara is a little bit underseeded here as well as St. Mary's. I'm not really sure how you put Gonzaga as a 3 seed, but then St. Mary's and Santa Clara both as a 7 and a 10. However, I think, like I said, Santa Clara is a little underseeded here, and I think Kentucky is just dealing with too many injuries here. I think Mark Pope is going to start to get on the hot seat here, as I think Kentucky will be sent home very early once again this year. This is the other 15-2 game that I kind of had a little bit of reservations on. I do think that this Tennessee State team is good, and I think they are good enough to pull off the upset against Iowa State. However, I do not think it's going to happen. I think Iowa State should handle this one pretty easily here, and they will be moving on to at least Sunday, not Saturday. Something went a little bit wrong with my recording here on the original West round of 32, so I did have to go back and redo this one really quick for you guys. But we'll start out with Arizona and Villanova, and in this one, I'm going to be riding with Arizona. To me, it just feels like Arizona is pretty much a shoo-in for the Final Four this year. I think that their bracket is honestly one of the weaker out of the rest of the brackets. So I do think that they are going to pretty much be a lock for the Final Four coming out of this bracket. But I really do like this Nova team. Don't get me wrong. I think they have 3 really good guards in Lewis, Perkins, and Lindsay there. So I think they absolutely have a chance of taking down Arizona here in the second round. I just personally don't think that it's going to happen, and I think Arizona will continue to roll here. Same thing with Wisconsin. I know that they've played down to their competition all year, but I just don't think that Hawaii has enough to get it done in back-to-back games. I think they absolutely have enough to get it done against Arkansas, but doing that 2 games in a row I think is just going to be very, very hard for a team that's not necessarily as talented as these top teams, but they defend the crap out of the ball, and I think they're going to give Wisconsin a lot of problems. I think Wisconsin will struggle with both of these matchups, but I will take Wisconsin to get to the Sweet 16 eventually here. Similar with this one, I'd love to take Texas here. I really would. I think Vocatitis can definitely give them a lot of problems, but I'm going to stick with Gonzaga here again. I just think Gonzaga is one of the most consistent teams in the Sweet 16. I know that they just didn't make it last year, but they went up against number 1 seeded Houston, who ended up in the national championship. So I think if they would have been against pretty much anybody else other than Houston, obviously Duke and Auburn, or Florida, obviously, they could have advanced to the Sweet 16 yet again last year, but I think they will start that streak back up again this year. I think Texas could absolutely do it, but I just don't see it happening. This is a game where I'm going to finally have a pretty big upset here, and I am going to take Miami and Jay Lucas to take down Purdue. I think that if Miami can pull this game off against Missouri in their home state, it is going to boost their momentum a ton. They have been building on that momentum pretty much all year. They were slept on very heavily coming into the year. A lot of people counted them out of the ACC run, and then they ended up being a top 4 seed in the ACC tournament after people had them around the bottom 8 to 10. So I think that it's really impressive what they've done this year, and I don't think that they're going to be done here after the first weekend. I think Purdue is doing the same thing that they do to us every single year. They always play really well in the Big Ten tournament. They always look like one of the best teams coming into March Madness, and then they fall flat on their face here in the first weekend. I don't think that that's going to happen against Queens. I think they should handle them pretty easily, but Miami is going to be a completely different ball game, and I think there will be a hurricane takeover here in Missouri. Moving down to the Midwest here, I think these are going to be a lot of tough matchups here. Just all 4 of these games are going to be really good, in my opinion. If it obviously ends up this way, I do think I am going to have a perfect bracket this year, just to get that very clear here. But I think we're going to start out with Michigan here. I like St. Louis. I think they're a very good team. I just think this is not a good matchup for Avila. Lendeborg is too athletic, too quick. He's going to give him a lot of problems in terms of on defense. I don't think that he's going to give him a lot of problems on offense either. Even without him, I mean, Mara is going to have too much height on him. I don't think he's going to be able to do much of his work, at least inside. I know he can definitely play inside and outside as a big man, which is definitely very luxurious for St. Louis. I just think that this is a bad matchup for them. I think they have the length to at least give their guards some problems. Elliot Cadeau is probably going to struggle a ton in that matchup, but I think they will do enough to squeak by St. Louis here. This one I think is probably the least entertaining games here. I think Akron is very underseeded here. I think that they could be closer to an 11 or a 10 seed here. I think that Hofstra is kind of getting a tough draw here in the second round for a Cinderella type of team, but I think Akron is going to take this one pretty easily. I think they were one of the best teams in the MAC, and I think people were definitely sleeping on the MAC a little bit heavy. I know I obviously took Miami, Ohio to lose in the first round, but I just think that's just due to the matchup that they're going to get. I think SMU could easily beat them. I don't think that they will. I think Miami, Ohio will pull that off tonight, but I think Tennessee is just too much for them. They have so much length. They're a very physical team. They play great defense, and with Nate Ament playing like the way he is, I just think that's going to be a really tough matchup for them. However, on the other side of the coin, this one is really, really tough for me. I've gone back and forth on this matchup a lot. I think Tennessee is very good. I think that they can absolutely take down Virginia, but I think the X factor in this one is Onyenso. I was extremely impressed with him after that ACC championship versus Duke. He was extremely impressive around the rim. I forget how many blocks he had. I think it was 9. But yeah, he is just extremely impressive, and I think he will be the difference maker in this Tennessee and Virginia game, as well as in the next round where I have them facing off against Iowa State. This is another one that I went back and forth on. I think Iowa State is going to be in for a very big scare in these 2 games here. I think they could lose to either one of these teams, but I don't think that they will. I have been high on Iowa State all year. I think that they are obviously one of the best teams in the league. They're certainly one of the best teams in the Big 12. But yeah, I think that they are going to get to the second weekend. I just think that these first 2 games are going to be very scary for them. Hopefully they can figure it out after those first 2 games. I think those are just, like I said, very tough games for them. But I do have them getting to the second weekend here. Back up to the East here. I am, of course, taking Duke. I do not think the Duke should struggle with this TCU team really at all. I think that TCU can keep it at least close-ish. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think Duke will win this one by 15 plus. Don't really think that needs much of an explanation there, but yeah, I think Duke is going to win this one pretty easily. Moving on to this one, same thing here. I think Kansas will win this one pretty easily. I think that they would honestly beat either St. John's or Northern Iowa in this game. I just think that Darren Peterson is going to come alive here on the first weekend of March Madness and is going to set us up for a really interesting game there in the Sweet 16 against Duke. But yeah, I have Kansas making it out of this section at least, no matter who they play. I think Kansas will be in the Sweet 16 this year. Moving down to Louisville and Michigan State. This one I have also gone back and forth on a lot here, and I'm going to put my faith in the Cardinals here. I just think that Michael Brown is a better player than Jeremy Fears. I think that's definitely a controversial take. It's definitely a very hot take. Jeremy Fears is one of the best point guards in the league, but I really believe in Michael Brown. I've seen too many flashes of greatness from him to see him going out sad in this tournament. I think he is going to ball out here in the first weekend. I think they sat him more out of precautionary reasons, similar to why Duke sat out Pat Gungba. But yeah, I really think that this Louisville team is going to finally start playing their best basketball here come March, and I really think that they're going to make a run here. This one is another one that I haven't really gone back and forth on. I think that UConn is going to pretty much wipe UCF off the floor here. I just really struggle to believe that a Dan Hurley team is going to be playing this bad coming into March Madness here. I personally think that they will at least make it to the second weekend. That matchup against Louisville is going to be definitely a little bit tougher, but I do think that they will at least make it to the second weekend here. Moving down to the South region here once again. This is probably where I'm going to take my first big upset here. I think Clemson is going to take down Florida. The only reason why is because Florida's shooting has kind of disappeared here over the last couple weeks. After they kicked the crap out of Arkansas, they have really struggled here a lot recently, and I just think that they're due for a pretty big stinker here early on in the tournament. Maybe this is partially my ACC bias here, but I really like this Clemson team. This has been a team that's kind of flown under the radar all year. They were sitting as the number 2 team in the Big East, in the ACC there for a while until they really slid there over a couple weeks. But I think they're back to playing some better ball here, and I think that they could really pull off this upset against Florida. I think I'm going with a little too many upsets here, but that's the fun of March Madness. You can make 25 different brackets and have one of them be right, and yeah, that's pretty much what you go with. However, I do like to only submit one bracket into various tournaments and things like that, so I am going to be sticking with this bracket as my tournament bracket, I believe. But yeah, I think I have a little too many upsets so far, but I do really like this Clemson team, and I do think that they absolutely have a chance of taking down Florida in the first weekend here. This Vanderbilt game, I just think Vanderbilt's going to be too much here. I think their guards are just too good with Miles and Tanner. I think they should dominate this one and get past Troy pretty easily, but that second weekend matchup against Clemson is going to be much tougher. Sticking with a similar theme here, I just don't think North Carolina has enough to compete with Illinois. I think they certainly have enough to take down VCU, even undermanned, but Illinois is going to be a completely different ballgame here. I know Illinois typically does not perform well in the tournament. I completely get that, but I'm expecting this Illinois team to be much different this year. They are a very good team, and I think that they could absolutely make a run to the Final Four. Will they? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how I feel here in a couple minutes, but moving down to this one, another pretty easy one here. I am kind of going chalk in the bottom half of this bracket here, which doesn't make me feel great, but I do think that this Houston team is, like I said, going to start playing their best ball here as we approach March Madness. I just really struggle to believe that they're going to lose in the first weekend, even to a very good St. Mary's team who I do think is a little underseeded. I just have a lot of faith in Houston. I have a lot of faith in Kelvin Sampson, so I personally think that they will get this done. But it's going to be a very tough game. St. Mary's is going to slow the game down just like Houston likes to as well. So we'll see who the pace favors in that one if it does come down to it. Back up to the east here, we have Duke and Kansas. And my bias is going to start taking over here pretty heavily. I am going to take Duke to get past Kansas. Duke did take down Kansas earlier on in the year. I get it. It was without Darren Peterson, but I just think that this Duke team is one of the best teams that we've seen in college basketball recently. I don't think that they're as good as last year's team. I completely understand those reservations, but they don't have to play last year's teams. So for me, that's kind of a moot argument. I don't think that there's really any reason to compare them to last year's team. They are playing against this year's field. So I personally believe that this Duke team will get to the Elite Eight at the very least. I personally have them taking the whole thing down. Spoiler alert there. But I absolutely think they'll get past this Kansas team. I think that defensively, their guards are going to dominate in this one. I'm hoping Dame Sarr puts Darren Peterson in a torture chamber for this one, and I just don't think that Badunga is going to be able to slow down Cam Boozer like they think he will. But that's neither here nor there. We will talk about that later, obviously, if that game gets to Kansas and Duke. We will talk about that next week, but I really think that Duke would pull that one off. Down here, UConn and Louisville. I don't know. I really don't know. I personally think that Louisville could obviously lose to this Michigan State team. I kind of want to take whoever wins this game over UConn. I just do not think that UConn is playing good enough right now. After they got the crap kicked out of them by St. John's, they looked really rough on senior night. They haven't really been dominating teams like they have been recently. I get it. Louisville is not playing like they should. They're definitely not playing like the team that I have been touting them or hyping them up as. But I do think we're going to get a Duke-Louisville rematch here in the Elite Eight. I think it's at least possible. If it's not Louisville, I think it'll be Michigan State. I think UConn's tournament run ends here in the Sweet 16, regardless of who they play. Back down to the South here, I am going to probably take Clemson here yet again. I'm starting to feel a little different here because of all the ACC teams I have in the Elite Eight, but yeah, I really do think that Clemson has the opportunity to make the Elite Eight here. I think that after all the terrible games that they've had over the past couple months, I think, like I said, they've been playing much better here recently, and I am not that high on Vanderbilt's team. I think if they run into a team like Clemson, they will struggle a lot. The only reason I have them even in the Sweet 16 is because they face off against two 12 and 13 seeds. I think Clemson is the better team. I think Vanderbilt has played very well recently, especially their run in the SEC tournament. However, I just don't see them beating many good teams here. I have kind of jumped off this Vanderbilt bandwagon here around midway through the season, but I think they could absolutely do it. They could absolutely take down Clemson. I think once you get into these games, these are just going to be pretty good games and toss-ups here, but I personally have Clemson getting to the Elite Eight here, as well as Houston. I have Houston getting to the Elite Eight. I think Houston is going to make it back to the Final Four. Spoiler alert there. But, yeah, I think Illinois is a very good team. It's just I cannot trust them in March. I trust Kelvin Sampson much more than the Illini in March, and I just think that this is going to be another year where Kelvin Sampson gets his team back to the Final Four. Going back to the West here, I think we're going to ride with Arizona. I just think Arizona is too good. I think they're playing some of their best ball that they've had all year, and I just really think that Arizona is going to get it done here in the Sweet 16 against Wisconsin. Even if they do play Arkansas, I think they'll get that done against them as well. This is another one that I'm really, really struggling on. I feel like I'm taking way too many ACC teams in the Elite Eight. It definitely will not be an all-ACC Elite Eight here this year. I might have to go back and switch up some of these sections here. I'll think about that after I complete the bracket and just kind of look over some of these matchups just to see how many upsets I have and things like that. We'll go over that after I'm done with the bracket here and go over some of my final thoughts. But for right now, I'm going to take Miami. I just think that this Gonzaga team is not that good. I think that they are certainly well coached. I think that they're certainly a good team, but I don't think that they're the elite Gonzaga team that we're typically used to seeing out there in the West Coast Conference. I think that they've had a very elite record, but I don't think that they've played much in terms of good competition. I am going to ride with Jay Lucas here to get to the Elite Eight in his first year as the head coach of Miami. The only thing I am probably going to switch this up here real quick. Not right now. We'll do that later. But I am going to take Miami to get to the Elite Eight here. I don't think that that's necessarily a huge or hot take, but I am going to take Miami to get to the Elite Eight there in that one. Moving down to the Midwest here, this is an easy one. I think Michigan is going to wipe Akron off the floor. Akron is a very good team. I've been speaking very highly of them. I think they will beat Texas Tech, but Michigan is a completely different ball game. Michigan is dealing with some injuries here with LJ Kayson out for the year, but I don't think that they should have any struggle until they get to the Elite Eight here. This is a game that I have really struggled on here. I would love to take Iowa State just because I think Iowa State could make a run here, and they could definitely be a team that cuts down the nets. However, if you remember what I have been saying about this Iowa State team all year, is that they do not have any rim protection at all. They just do not defend the rim or the paint very well at all, and that is something that Virginia does very well. I think that is going to be what puts Virginia over this Iowa State team here in the the Sweet 16. I just really think that Iowa State is a good team. If they catch fire, it can hit the three against Virginia. They should win. But I think they're going to really struggle getting into the paint, and I think Virginia is going to dominate them in the paint. I think Tice DeRitter is going to have a really good game against Iowa State if they do end up matching up against each other. And I just really don't like that matchup for them. I think Virginia's rim protection is going to boost them over Iowa State in this one, just based on how bad Iowa State's rim protection is. All right, and now we'll go back to the top of the bracket here. Starting in the East, I am going to change this up here real quick. Just had a lot of second thoughts here on this one. I do like Louisville. I really do. But I think Michigan State is going to be the team here. I don't know why. It's just Duke and Michigan State just are always on a collision course to play each other in the Elite Eight, or at least at some point in the bracket. I mean, they played them in the Final Four on their last championship run. I just think that this is going to be history repeating itself here. I know I just said Louisville. I'm sorry to kind of go back on that, but I do think that this Michigan State team will get past them. I said earlier that I think whoever comes out of that Louisville and Michigan State game will get past UConn, so I don't really feel weird changing that one up necessarily, but I am going to change it to Michigan State here, and I'm still going to have Duke taking down Michigan State. We already beat them at home by, I think, 10. I think it was around 10. So I'm not really worried about this rematch against them. Obviously, I need Fears to keep his hands to himself. If he hurts one of my Duke boys, I'm going to be irate. But I think Duke should get past this one pretty easily. I think it'll be pretty similar to that Final Four game in the 2015 run that Duke had. I think Duke will wipe Michigan State off the floor here, especially if they can get Caleb Foster back for this one. This does seem to be around the time frame that they should be getting Caleb Foster back on top of Pat Gungba. If they get him back, he is the Michigan State killer. I think that he will have an incredible game for probably his second game back. If he does come back this weekend, it'll be in this game, and he'll play limited minutes, I believe. But, yeah, I really think Duke will run Michigan State off the floor in this one. I do not think Michigan State has near enough to keep up with Duke, and this is just going to kind of prove my point here that this region is not that tough. I really do not think this region is that tough. I think there's a lot of big names here, like you got Louisville, Michigan State, UConn, St. John's, Kansas, Duke. But yeah, I think that's all they are. I think that's all they are. They're just big names, nothing more. I think they have good coaches as well. Don't get me wrong. They all have good coaches, but I don't think their teams are that good. I really don't, and I think people are just getting hung up on the names here. Moving over to Arizona and Miami, I think this is where Miami's run will end here. I like Miami a lot. I think they're very well coached, and I think this would be an incredible season for Miami under their first year with Jay Lucas as their head coach, but I just do not see them taking down Arizona. I think Arizona will be in the Final Four, and I think Final Four is going to be pretty close to chalk here once again this year. Moving down to the bottom half of the bracket here, I, of course, have Houston. Clemson's good. They're a good team, and I think that they'll get a very big win against Florida here if they can pull that one off. But this Houston team is just very good. I just think that they're going to start playing much better here as they get into the tournament. This is usually when Kelvin Sampson's teams are playing the best. Obviously, they didn't play very well in that Big 12 championship, but I think they are absolutely going to turn it around here. Kingston Flemings is one of the best players and freshman in the nation. I think he will carry them to another Final Four run here. Same over here as well. I think I'm going to go with Michigan. I think that Onyenso could really cause a lot of problems for Michigan. I really do. But I don't think that they have enough to beat Michigan, even with Michigan being slightly undermanned here. I think that Virginia is a very good team, like I've said multiple times. But Michigan is one of those elite teams. I think that we are pretty much on a collision course for either Michigan and Arizona versus Duke in the national championship. And finally, we have made it to the Final Four of Duke, Houston, Arizona, and Michigan. This Duke-Houston matchup really is an eyesore. I mean, I really don't want to see this happen, but I do think it will happen. I think, however, in this rematch of last year's Final Four, Duke will finally close this one out. Obviously, Duke lost a really heartbreaking loss to them last year, where I think if they would have won, they would have eventually cut down the nets. Obviously, that did not happen, so now we need to get back here this year, and I think Duke will win this one if this is a rematch between the two of them. I think Kingston Flemings could absolutely give us some problems, but I think Dame Sarr will shut him down. I personally think that Duke is going to the national championship once again here this year with their sights set on getting number 6. This Arizona-Michigan game has been really tough for me. I have had this Final Four matchup in pretty much all of my brackets here just because I think that, like I said, Duke, Arizona, and Michigan are the top 3 teams in the nation pretty heavily here, especially with Florida starting to struggle here recently. But I personally think Michigan's front court is going to be too much for Arizona. I think Arizona's guards are a little bit better than Michigan's, especially with LJ Kayson ruled out for the year. But I do think that Michigan will be able to pull this one off. I think that's going to be an incredible game if we do get that one matched up against each other. But I think Michigan will take that one home and face off against Duke in the national championship for a rematch from a couple of months ago, where I, of course, have Duke taking it home once again here. Obviously, if you couldn't tell by my hat and my previous, 17 episodes, I am a Duke fan, so I am going to ride with my boys. But my one thing here is how do you guys think that Duke's injuries are any bigger than Michigan's? Now, I just really need to hear someone tell me why. Because as soon as LJ Kayson went down, you heard the Field of 68 and CBS Sports talking about, oh, that's not that big of a deal. They're still a very elite team, yada, yada, yada. But then as soon as Duke loses their guard, all of a sudden it's the end of the world. Duke could lose in the first weekend and all this stuff. I don't get it. I think you're just hypocritical or you hate Duke. I really don't understand how you can say one team losing their backup point guard is not a big deal and won't hurt their chances of cutting down a title, but then Duke loses their point guard and all of a sudden it's the end of the world and everything is crashing down on them. Pat Gungbo will be back this weekend. I don't think that that's really a question right now. If he's not back in the first game, he'll definitely be back for the second game. I personally think that they are just being very precautionary with him, so I don't think that's necessarily a big worry or a big issue here for Duke. So if the only thing that's hanging you up here is Caleb Foster, I just think that's a little weird, seeing as how people really talked about how much of a problem he was for Duke pretty much the entire year. They said that they weren't getting enough out of the point guard position. He wasn't playing enough. They pretty much blamed last year's Final Four run on him not doing well enough multiple times this year. So I just think it's a little hypocritical. It really seems like as soon as Duke gets one thing to go wrong, everybody's willing to jump off the bandwagon. But as soon as Duke's playing great, then everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon in fear of being wrong about Duke. So, yeah, just really weird. Needed to rant about that real quick because I think it's very hypocritical to, like I said, just pretty much count Duke out just because of one injury, but then also take Michigan to the national championship while they're dealing with a very important injury. LJ Kayson could have very easily been their starting point guard all year. People have been arguing that over Elliot Cadeau for pretty much the entire year. So, again, I think that's very hypocritical. Wanted to call that out here, but yeah, we'll see how this plays out. Obviously, in March Madness, this is the best time of the year, and any team can lose to anyone. We have learned that multiple times over the years after people said that no one seed would ever lose to a 16 seed. It happened twice. So, anything can happen here. I am super excited for this tournament. I think we are in for a real treat this year. I think this could be one of the most fun and exciting tournaments in a long time, even though I do think it is going to be pretty chalk for the Final Four. I think this first weekend is going to be absolutely electric. There are some really good teams that are sitting down in the double-digit seed range. So I am really looking forward to this tournament tipping off tomorrow. I hope you guys are too. But that is all I have for today's episode of the CBB Yapper. I hope you guys enjoyed filling out my bracket with me. Obviously, if I don't do so hot, you're more than welcome to comment and tell me how poor my bracket is doing. But I will be looking forward to seeing how everybody's brackets pan out here. I hope everybody enjoys these games this weekend. We are, like I said, in the best time of the year, so do not take it for granted. If you have any days to take off here, I definitely recommend taking off a full day for Thursday and Friday and just plopping yourself on your couch and watching all of these great games. But I will see you guys next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we'll go over my second chance bracket, and then we'll talk a little bit more in depth of some of the results that happened from this weekend after they've obviously taken place. But until then, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you for listening along, and if you enjoyed, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and join us back next Wednesday for our next episode.